Long before power grids, ancient engineers drew energy from the cosmos. The forgotten legacy of Bronze Age technologists reveals they may have powered their world using the moon itself. Why does this ancient knowledge matter now, as we desperately search for sustainable energy sources? This video will show you exactly how they extracted power from the moon's movements, a discovery that could reshape our view of history and progress. We will uncover the secrets behind their megalithic power stations and explore the celestial mechanics they mastered. What if the key to our future has been hiding in our past for over 3,000 years? How much of our own technological story have we failed to understand? These masterminds of antiquity were far more than simple metalworkers. They were the original engineer astronomers, individuals who possessed a deep, practical understanding of the world and the sky above it. Think of a skilled artisan, but one whose workshop was the landscape itself, and whose tools were stone, celestial cycles, and an intimate knowledge of materials. Their expertise was not specialized in the way we think of it today. Instead, it was a fusion of what we would now call metallurgy, civil engineering, and precise astronomy. They were the architects of the great stone circles, the creators of complex calendars carved into bone and stone, and the pioneers who looked at the predictable movements of the moon and saw not just a symbol, but a system. They practiced a form of geomancy, the art of aligning structures with terrestrial and celestial power, viewing the Earth as a living entity connected to the cosmos. This holistic worldview was their greatest advantage. It allowed them to see connections where we see separate disciplines, to perceive the potential for energy in the rhythmic tug of the tides and the slow precession of the lunar cycle. To grasp how they could even conceive of capturing lunar power, we must first appreciate this unique blend of craftsmanship and cosmic observation. Their entire technological philosophy was built on integration, not extraction, setting the stage for their most astonishing achievement. The moon's pull is a physical hand reaching across the void. It grips our oceans, hauling vast masses of water across the globe in the rhythmic rise and fall of the tides. This is the most visible proof that the moon is not a distant light but an engine of force. For the Bronze Age technologist, this was the starting point. They saw the tides not as a mystery but as a measurable output, a clear demonstration that celestial movements could produce terrestrial results. The entire lunar cycle was a source of profound energy. Think of the new moon when the sky is dark and the full moon when it shines brightest. That cycle represents a continuous ebb and flow of gravitational influence, a slow, powerful pulse. But their observations went far deeper than just phases. They tracked the moon's complex orbit, a path that is not a perfect circle but a slight ellipse, bringing the moon sometimes closer, sometimes farther from the Earth. This changing distance subtly alters the strength of its pull, adding another layer to the rhythm. Even more remarkably, they documented the moon's libration, a gentle wobble on its axis that allows us to see slightly more than just one face over time. It is like a slow, nodding motion in the sky. Why would they care about such a subtle shift? Because to them, every movement mattered. Each phase, each orbital shift, each wobble was a cog in a great celestial clock. This was not abstract astronomy, it was practical engineering. They understood that this clockwork offered both kinetic energy, the energy of motion seen in the crashing waves, and vast reserves of potential energy, energy stored and waiting to be released, like water held at high tide behind a natural basin. Unlocking how they built machines to tap into this reservoir requires us to look at the sophisticated tools they used to read the sky itself. these great stone calendars were the key to predicting the moon's power. Take the massive sarsen stones at Stonehenge, arranged with a purpose that goes far beyond ceremony. Specific alignments target the moon's most extreme rising and setting points, events that only occur about every 18.5 years. This was not about marking a single day, but about tracking a long, slow celestial rhythm. In Ireland, the passage tomb of Newgrange is precisely oriented to capture the winter solstice sunrise, but its builders also encoded lunar knowledge into the surrounding landscape. The thousands of standing stones at Carnac in France form vast alignments that many researchers believe chart the moon's complex path across the heavens. These sites were not passive temples. They were dynamic instruments, giant computers in stone that enabled a chosen few to forecast not just eclipses, but the resulting intensification of tidal forces. The very act of building them reveals a staggering intellectual feat. To haul multi-ton stones into precise positions required more than brute force. It demanded a deep understanding of geometry, astronomy, and celestial mechanics. This was a society capable of conceptualizing and executing projects on a monumental scale, proving they possessed the engineering vision necessary to harness something as vast as tidal energy. With the ability to predict the moon's movements so accurately, the next logical step was to build machines that could capture the force those movements created. The ocean itself became their engine. For a coastal community living by the lunar cycle, the tide was not a mystery but a metronome, a predictable pulse of raw power. They watched the water retreat, exposing rich tidal flats and then surge back in, filling every inlet and channel. This was not a force to be feared, but a resource to be managed. Their first step was simple yet brilliant, the creation of tidal traps. Think of a natural stone basin along the shore, enhanced with walls and a single, narrow outlet. As the high tide rushed in, it would fill this lagoon. Then, as the moon's pull drew the ocean back out, the only escape for that captured seawater was through that narrow channel. There, the focused current could turn a simple, durable water wheel. This was not a complex machine, but it was an effective one, harnessing the moon's gravitational pull to grind grain or crush ore. They did not need to know the mathematics of gravity. They only needed to observe the unbreakable correlation between the moon in the sky and the movement of the water at their feet. This was hydropower, but on a schedule written by the cosmos, a reliable and renewable energy source millennia before the term was coined. The mastery of this tidal principle provided a steady, mechanical force, but their ingenuity did not stop at the water's edge. They also looked to harness the moon's other great gift, its light. The moon's light was a resource to be gathered and directed. Across high ridges and sacred hills, Bronze Age engineers positioned polished sheets of bronze and carefully shaped stone mirrors. Their goal was not to create light, but to capture and amplify what the cosmos provided. On the night of a full moon, these reflectors would catch the pale silver glow and cast it downward, creating pools of enhanced illumination in the darkness below. This was not the brilliant glare of fire, but a steady, cool light that could extend the working day for delicate tasks like flint knapping or cordage making long after sunset. It would have transformed sacred ceremonies, bathing ritual spaces in an otherworldly luminescence that felt divinely sent. For travelers, a network of such reflectors on known high points could have served as a celestial guidance system, a chain of soft beacons across the landscape. This practice, a form of moonlight farming, required an intimate knowledge of the lunar path. The reflectors had to be angled perfectly, knowing exactly where the moon would crest the horizon and how its light would travel throughout the night. It was passive energy harvesting at its most elegant, a direct collaboration with the sky. This nuanced approach shows they saw the moon not just as a single source of power, but as a multifaceted tool. Its gravity moved water, and its light illuminated their world. Yet their most profound connection may have been forged in the heart of their furnaces, where they transformed earth into metal using a process they believed was directly empowered by the moon itself. The very metal they forged was thought to be imbued with the moon's own essence. Bronze Age smelters did not simply mix copper and tin, they performed the alchemy under a specific celestial clock. The ideal time for this sacred work was often the full moon, when its silvery light was at its peak. They believed the molten metal, glowing in the crucible, would absorb the moon's perceived qualities of incorruptible strength and cool, enduring resilience. This was not mere superstition, it was a fundamental principle of their material science. Silver, with its unmistakable lunar gleam, was held in the highest esteem, considered a physical fragment of the moon's power made tangible on Earth. But the connection went even deeper than metals. The very stones they used in their monuments held a hidden potential. Certain rocks, like quartzite, possess a remarkable property. When squeezed or subjected to pressure, they can generate tiny electrical charges, a phenomenon we now call piezoelectricity. Imagine the immense stones of a tidal trap, constantly weighed upon by the ocean's push and pull, or a massive standing stone heated by the day's sun and then rapidly cooled by the chill of a moonlit night. These cycles of stress and thermal expansion could have caused the stone itself to produce faint but measurable energies. Through generations of observation, these technologists likely discovered that some locations and some stones felt different, perhaps producing sparks when struck or a faint tingling sensation. They would have interpreted this through their cosmological lens, seeing it as further proof that the moon's influence could charge the very materials of the Earth. This reveals a technology that was not purely mechanical, but one that blended physical engineering with a living, spiritual understanding of the cosmos. Every component, from the bronze in a reflector to the stone in a circle, was part of an integrated system. Orchestrating such a complex interplay of celestial events, tidal forces, and material properties required more than observation. It demanded a flawless and sophisticated method of tracking time itself. The rhythm of the cosmos was a language they learned to read fluently. At the heart of their power system lay the Lunisolar calendar, a complex fusion of lunar months and solar years that acted as the engineering schematic for their entire operation. This was not a simple chart for planting crops. It was a dynamic operational manual, a set of instructions for when and where to deploy their technology for maximum effect. A dedicated class of astronomer priests served as the system operators, their eyes constantly on the sky, their minds calculating the intricate dance between the sun and the moon. Their most critical task was predicting the spring tides. These are the most powerful tides of the entire cycle, occurring when the sun and moon align their gravitational pull at the new and full moons. Knowing the exact day and even the hour of a spring tide was like knowing precisely when a great engine would reach its peak output. It gave communities the forewarning to open the sluice gates of their tidal traps, ensuring every possible ounce of kinetic energy was captured from the surging water. That same calendar told them when the full moon would rise, signaling the nights to position their bronze reflectors for the brightest possible illumination. This predictive power was made portable by artifacts like the Nebra Sky Disk, a bronze masterpiece inlaid with gold symbols of the sun, moon, and stars. It was more than art, it was a handheld computer, allowing a technologist in the field to confirm celestial events and synchronize their actions across a wide territory. By rendering the seemingly chaotic cosmos into a predictable schedule, they transformed their relationship with energy from one of chance to one of command. This centralized control over time itself was the invisible architecture that made the entire system work, and it was housed within the most advanced and enigmatic structures they ever built. The Maltese Islands hold one of the most profound mysteries of the ancient world. Here, the temples of Hagakim and Mnajdra rise from the landscape, their massive limestone blocks carved and placed over 1,000 years before Stonehenge. These are not simple structures. Their curved apses and narrow corridors were engineered with a startling precision, aligned not only to the sunrise of the solstices and equinoxes, but to a far more subtle lunar event. Specific doorways and apertures frame the point on the horizon where the moon reaches its southern major standstill, an extreme position it only occupies every 18.5 years. This was an architecture built to a cosmic scale, designed to interact directly with the slowest rhythms of the sky. But the genius of these temples goes beyond mere alignment. The very material of the temples, the Globigerina limestone, is central to their function. This specific stone is relatively soft, making it workable, but it also possesses unique acoustic and piezoelectric properties. During a major lunar standstill, when the moon's gravitational pull is at a particular intensity, the entire temple structure may have acted as a giant energy concentrator. The subtle stresses on the stone from the Earth's tides, combined with the changing temperatures of the night, could have caused the limestone to generate faint electrical charges. Inside the temple, this might have manifested as a palpable hum in the air, a resonant vibration felt in the bones, or even the faint scent of ozone. For the people who built them, these phenomena were not accidents. They were the desired outcome. The technologists of Malta were likely harnessing what they perceived as a vibrational life force, a cosmic energy that was amplified by the moon's precise position. The temple was a resonant chamber, tuning the Earth itself to the frequency of the cosmos. This was a technology of sensation, designed to produce an experience of power that was both auditory and tactile, making the invisible force of the moon something that could be physically felt within the sacred space. Such a deep integration of geology, astronomy, and architecture did not arise by chance. It points to a sophisticated body of knowledge, a sacred science so valuable it had to be protected and passed down through generations with absolute fidelity. This profound understanding of the cosmos was a guarded treasure, a specialized class of technologist priests, individuals who combined the roles of engineer, astronomer, and spiritual leader, held the exclusive keys to this lunar technology. Their knowledge was not written in books but encoded in complex oral traditions, intricate rituals, and the very alignment of the stones they erected. The precise methods for calculating the moon's 18.5-year cycle, for calibrating a tidal trap's sluice gate, or for selecting the specific stones that seemed to hum with energy were secrets passed down through long, demanding apprenticeships. This was not merely about hoarding power, it was about preserving a system that required absolute precision to function. A misaligned monument would fail to capture the celestial event it was designed for. An incorrectly predicted tide could leave a community without the mechanical force to grind its grain. The priesthood served as the essential system operators and maintenance crew for this civilization-wide power grid, ensuring its rhythms remained synchronized with the heavens. Their authority was derived from their ability to deliver tangible results, from the practical turning of a water wheel to the awe-inspiring spectacle of a temple chamber resonating during a lunar standstill. This necessary secrecy, however, created a fragility. The entire technological edifice rested not on widely understood principles, but on the memories and skills of a small, initiated elite. When social upheavals, climate shifts, or migrations eventually disrupted this chain of custody, the knowledge did not simply fade. To later cultures who no longer shared the same holistic worldview, the surviving fragments of this science, stripped of their practical context, were easily misinterpreted as primitive mythology or mere superstitious ritual. They saw the stones but could no longer read the schematic. The stones and the stars were not separate systems, but two parts of a single, breathing entity. To see the moon as a mere rock in the sky is to misunderstand everything about Bronze Age technology. For them, Selene or her countless local namesakes was a living, conscious force, a divine person whose movements directly animated the world. The tides were her breath, the moonlight her gaze, and the gravitational pull was the tangible evidence of her will. This was not poetry, it was the foundational principle of their engineering. To harness tidal power was not to exploit a resource, but to enter into a sacred agreement. The ritual performed by a priest at the full moon, chanting as the tide reached its peak, was as crucial to the process as the engineering of the sluice gate itself. It was the human component of the system, a way of aligning human intention with celestial action, of politely requesting the cooperation of a cosmic partner. This is the grand schism that separates their worldview from our own. We see a disconnected universe of inert matter governed by impersonal laws. They lived within a universe that was alive, sentient, and responsive. When a polished bronze mirror was angled to catch the moon's light, it was not just reflecting photons, it was capturing the essence of a goddess to illuminate a sacred rite. When the stones of a Maltese temple hummed with piezoelectric charge during a lunar standstill, it was not an accidental property of quartz. It was the temple coming alive, resonating in harmony with a divine presence. This fusion is why we have for so long dismissed their achievements as mere superstition. We catalogue their rituals as religion and their alignments as primitive astronomy, failing to see that both were integral components of a single, sophisticated technological system. Their science was sacred because they believed the cosmos itself was sacred. Every act of engineering was, to them, an act of communion with an intelligent universe. Their hydraulic works were monuments of a different kind, carved not from solitary stone but from the living coastline itself. Across the islands of Orkney in Scotland, the sea and the technologists collaborated in stone. They reshaped natural inlets, building long, low walls to create precisely engineered tidal basins. At high tide, seawater would flood these reservoirs through a strategically narrow channel. Then, as the moon's pull drew the ocean back, the only escape for that captured water was through a separate, constricted outlet, where the concentrated force would spin a simple yet effective water wheel. This was a tidal mill in its most fundamental form, a machine that converted the moon's gravitational promise into the grinding of grain or the crushing of ore for bronze smelting. The genius of these systems lay in their deep understanding of hydrology. They knew that to maximize power, they needed more than just a wall. They needed a significant difference in height between the full basin and the retreating sea. They selected sites with a naturally high tidal range and then enhanced that gradient with their constructions, ensuring a powerful, predictable flow of water for hours after the tide had turned. Maintaining this lunar-powered engine was a relentless communal duty. The technologist priests would have directed the seasonal dredging of silt-choked canals and the careful repair of wooden sluice gates battered by the sea. This was not a technology that could be abandoned. It was the community's mechanical heartbeat, its rhythm synchronized to the cosmos. The principles at work here are startlingly familiar, a direct precursor to the hydroelectric dams of our own era. Both capture the potential energy of elevated water, storing it and then releasing it in a controlled torrent to perform work. The key difference is one of scale and source. Our dams block mighty rivers, while theirs harness the planetary pulse of the tides, a power source far more vast and eternal. This practical, daily application of celestial mechanics proves their technology was not an abstract ritual, but the very foundation of their material world. And yet, the reach of their lunar engineering extended beyond the practical, into the realm of the senses, creating experiences of power that were as much about feeling as they were about function. The stones themselves could sing. Deep within the chambered tomb of Newgrange, a space already aligned with the winter sun, the architecture reveals another layer of genius. The massive, overlapping slabs that form the walls and ceiling are not just structurally sound, they are acoustically tuned. When a specific note is chanted or a drum is struck at a precise rhythm during a significant lunar event, something remarkable happens. The sound waves do not simply echo and fade. They bounce between the parallel stone surfaces, reinforcing each other to create what physicists call a standing wave. This is a pattern of vibration that appears to stand still, humming with concentrated energy at a particular frequency. The entire chamber transforms into a giant resonating box, much like the body of a guitar. Now consider the moon's subtle but persistent gravitational tug. On a human scale, its effect is imperceptible, but on a system already vibrating at a precise, delicate frequency, that tiny nudge could be enough to influence the resonance. It could shift the pitch, amplify the intensity, or even trigger the standing wave at a specific moment. For the people inside the chamber, this would not be a theoretical concept, it would be a physical experience. The air would thicken with a palpable hum, a vibration felt in the chest and heard in the bones. The very stone underfoot might seem to pulse. This was not random noise, it was engineered harmony. The technologists likely selected their building stones not only for size and shape, but for their inherent sonic qualities. Certain types of granite or limestone transmit sound with exceptional clarity and resonance. By combining the right materials with the perfect architectural dimensions, they built instruments of stone designed to be played by the human voice and fine-tuned by the cosmos. The energy effect produced was interpreted as a manifestation of spiritual power, a direct communion with the divine force of the moon. Some researchers speculate that such controlled sonic environments could have been used for healing, using these focused vibrations to soothe ailments or alter states of consciousness. This represents the absolute pinnacle of their technological philosophy, a system where architecture, sound, human ritual, and celestial timing were woven into a single, unified fabric. The power they harnessed was as real as the shuddering stone, yet it was power that could only be unlocked through a sacred collaboration with the universe itself. Every structure was a node in a vast, invisible network. The technologists did not simply place their monuments on convenient hilltops, they wove them into the land with deliberate purpose. This was the art of geomancy, a science of connection that saw the Earth as a living body crisscrossed with energy pathways, what we might call ley lines. A single standing stone was not an isolated object. It was a terminal, a connection point designed to interface the power of the sky with the flow of the Earth. Picture a sacred valley where a stone circle, a burial mound, and a spring-fed pool form a perfect triangle on the land. This terrestrial geometry was not random. It often mirrored a specific pattern of stars above or a critical phase of the moon's journey. The entire landscape became a mirror of the heavens, a colossal circuit board etched into the hills and valleys. When the moon, in its slow procession, reached a certain point in the sky, its influence was believed to flow down this pre-established path. The stone circle might hum with a faint charge, the spring might bubble with renewed vigor, and the burial mound might become a focal point for rituals, all activated in a celestial sequence. This was not a static power grid, but a dynamic and intelligent system. Different lunar phases would energize different nodes, creating a rhythmic pulse of power that moved across the countryside in a predictable, manageable wave. This reveals a systems thinking approach that is breathtaking in its sophistication. They were not just building machines, they were engineering ecosystems of energy, treating the entire landscape as a single, integrated technological device. The true genius lies in how they scaled this concept, connecting entire regions into a web of celestial influence that synchronized human activity across vast distances. The Great Unraveling began with the collapse of the world they knew. Around 1200 BCE, a cascade of disasters, from climate change to mass migrations, shattered the intricate trade routes that supplied tin and copper for bronze. Centralized kingdoms, the very patrons of the technologist priesthood, crumbled into chaos. The specialized class that had meticulously maintained the lunar power grid was scattered to the winds. Their knowledge, painstakingly passed from master to apprentice through generations of oral tradition, had no backup. It died suddenly in the fires of collapsing cities and the desperate struggle for survival. With the keepers of the calendar gone, the tidal trap slowly silted up. The stone calendars, once precisely aligned, were left untended, their celestial meanings fading from memory with each passing year. The dawn of the Iron Age accelerated the forgetting. Ironworking was a different kind of magic. It was pragmatic, terrestrial, and did not rely on rare, imported materials. The new metal was forged in smaller, more mobile furnaces, its production no longer tied to the grand, cosmic rhythms of the full moon. The emerging empires of the Iron Age, like Assyria and later Rome, worshipped different gods and built different power structures. Their cosmology was often centered on a supreme sun god, a ruler of the daytime sky, which overshadowed the subtle, complex lunar devotions of the past. To these new, pragmatic civilizations, the old standing stones and moon-aligned temples seemed like the relics of a primitive, superstitious age. They saw the monuments, but they could no longer read the blueprints. The technology became so seamlessly integrated into the landscape that its very success made it invisible. A tidal mill that worked for centuries was just a feature of the coast, its origin and celestial connection lost to time. The principles of piezoelectric resonance in stone circles were no longer understood as engineering, but remembered only as legends of singing stones or haunted hills. The profound, integrated science of the Bronze Age technologists shattered into 1,000 fragments of folklore. The moon goddess was still worshipped, but her role as a power source for civilization was reduced to a tale of celestial romance. The knowledge did not vanish so much as it was translated into a language that no longer described a working technology, but instead told a story, and within those stories, the echoes of a lost power still whisper. The old stories were not just tales, they were technical manuals in disguise. When the great engineering of the Bronze Age collapsed, its core principles did not vanish completely. Instead, they were translated into the universal language of myth, a durable vessel for carrying fragile knowledge across the chasm of forgotten centuries. The moon, once the central component in a power grid, became a goddess. The Greek Selene driving her chariot across the night sky was not merely a poetic image. She was a personification of a celestial body whose movements were clockwork predictable. Her described influence over the seas and the rhythms of life on Earth was a precise, albeit allegorical, record of observable cause and effect. In Mesopotamia, the god Sin, with his waxing and waning crown, directly mirrored the lunar phases that dictated the calendar for planting, harvesting, and most importantly, for predicting the tides. The epic stories of Poseidon and his trident stirring the oceans into a fury are a perfect example. This is not a random invention. It is a mythic encoding of a physical truth that the moon's gravitational pull is the true force that agitates the seas. These narratives served as powerful mnemonic devices. In an age without widespread literacy, a compelling story about a goddess and her dominion over the waters was far easier to remember and pass down than a complex set of engineering principles for maintaining a tidal trap. The myth preserved the relationship even when the reason behind the relationship was lost. The recurring themes of lunar deities influencing fertility, growth, and the very flow of time are all direct reflections of the technologists' documented observations. Decoding these myths gives us a secondary blueprint, a cultural echo of the sophisticated science that once powered their world. It reveals that the line between their sacred stories and their operational data was beautifully, intentionally blurred. This encoded knowledge hints at a system so advanced that its failure was not an end, but a transformation into legend, leaving behind clues for a future civilization that might one day learn to listen to the old stories with new ears. Modern researchers are turning theory into tangible proof through the art of experimental archaeology. A team might spend months on a windswept coastline, building a functional tidal trap using only replicas of Bronze Age tools, materials, and construction methods. They haul stones by hand, shape wooden sluice gates with flint adzes, and wait for the moon to dictate their schedule. By installing modern flow meters and data loggers, they can measure exactly how much kinetic energy the trapped tidewater produces as it rushes through the narrow outlet, turning a reconstructed water wheel. The data collected across several lunar cycles reveals a clear picture, not of immense power by today's standards, but of a reliable, predictable mechanical force capable of performing essential community labor. In another experiment, archaeologists position carefully polished bronze sheets on a hillside, precisely angled to the trajectory of the full moon. Light meters confirm that these ancient reflectors could indeed create pools of usable illumination, effectively doubling the available light for tasks in the immediate area. Inside a reconstructed stone chamber, acousticians use speakers and sensitive microphones to map the resonant frequencies of the space. They discover that certain chants at specific pitches do indeed create powerful standing waves that make the very air vibrate, a sensation that would have felt like a supernatural presence to someone unaware of the physics. These are not thought experiments, they are physical trials that subject ancient claims to the rigorous test of measurable results. They force us to ask not if the Bronze Age technologists could have done these things, but how well their methods actually worked within the limits of their world. This hands-on process moves the entire discussion from fascinating speculation into the realm of evidence-based inquiry. We may never fully inhabit the Bronze Age mind with its sacred cosmology, but we can replicate their physical constraints, their available materials, and their environmental challenges. By building what they built and observing the outcomes, we come as close as possible to witnessing the practical reality of their lunar-powered world, closing the gap between the myths they left behind and the science we are only now beginning to decode. The echo of lunar power resonates far beyond the standing stones of Europe. On the other side of the world, the stepped pyramid of El Castillo at Chichen Itza stands as a testament to a parallel discovery. During the equinoxes, the setting sun casts a shadow that creates the illusion of a serpent slithering down the staircase, a brilliant alignment with solar cycles. But this mastery extended into the night. The precise geometry of the structure was also designed to interact with the moonlight, creating dramatic plays of shadow and illumination during key lunar events. The architects were not just building for the sun, they were calibrating their monuments to a dual celestial clock. This was a shared technological insight, emerging independently across vast distances. In ancient China, the pursuit of harmony with celestial forces was formalized into the sophisticated practice of feng shui. This was not mere decoration, it was a rigorous system of geomancy. Its core principle was to align homes, temples, and entire cities with the natural flow of energy, or Kai, which included the palpable influences of the moon. The imperial calendar, a tool of state power, was fundamentally lunisolar, dictating the timing of everything from agricultural planting to grand ceremonies based on the moon's phase. The Chinese observed and documented the moon's effects on tides, on plant growth, and even on human health, systematically integrating this data into their engineering and urban planning. From Mesoamerica to China and back to Bronze Age Europe, we see the same profound pattern. These cultures, separated by oceans and speaking unrelated languages, all arrived at the same fundamental conclusion. They observed the moon not as a passive symbol, but as an active generator of power. Its gravity moved water, its light illuminated the night, and its cycles provided a perfect, reliable rhythm for their technologies. This universal recognition is too consistent to be coincidence. It points to a fundamental truth about human observation and the nature of our closest celestial neighbor. The moon genuinely does exert a physical force on our world, and the most advanced ancient cultures were simply the first to build a civilization that consciously danced to its rhythm. Beyond the crashing waves lies a far more subtle domain of power. The immense force of the tides is just the most obvious sign of the moon's influence, a phenomenon we now explain through Newton's laws of gravity. But what about the forces that are too faint for our modern senses to perceive? The Earth itself is alive with a constant, quiet hum of energy. Weak electrical currents, known as telluric currents, flow continuously through the ground, generated by the planet's rotation and its interactions with the solar wind. The moon's persistent gravitational tug does more than lift water. It also minutely distorts the Earth's solid crust and subtly perturbs its protective electromagnetic field. These tiny shifts can, in theory, influence the flow of those subterranean currents, strengthening or redirecting them. The key to accessing this power was not in building complex machinery, but in finding the right places and the right materials. The technologists were master geologists without a formal name for the science. They discovered through generations of trial and observation that certain rock types could interact with these subtle energies. A seam of quartz running through granite, for instance, could act as a natural conductor for telluric currents, much like a copper wire. A specific type of clay formation, rich in minerals, might function as a primitive capacitor, slowly gathering and storing a faint electrical charge over time. They would have identified these potent locations empirically. A particular hilltop might feel strangely charged during a full moon, or a specific standing stone might feel warm to the touch on a cold night when the lunar phase was right. They interpreted these sensations through their spiritual worldview, seeing them as manifestations of the land's vitality, but they were also recording verifiable data. By positioning their monuments directly on these energetic hotspots and constructing them from amplifying materials, they were essentially building natural power stations. A stone circle could have functioned as a lens, focusing and intensifying these subtle terrestrial currents during peak lunar events, perhaps producing effects that were audible as a low hum or visible as a faint, eerie glow known as Earth lights. This idea ventures into speculative physics, but it aligns perfectly with the sophisticated empirical knowledge these cultures demonstrably possessed. They did not need to understand the theory of electromagnetic induction to recognize that when the moon was in a certain position, the stones at a specific site came alive with a power that could be felt and perhaps harnessed. This was not magic, it was an advanced form of geophysical engineering, a deep collaboration with the quiet, persistent energies of a living Earth. Their expertise reached into the very lifeblood of the world, into the silent pulse of plants and the rhythms of the human body. These ancient engineers recognized that the moon's power was not confined to stone and water. It governed living systems with the same predictable regularity. They scheduled the planting of root crops during the waning moon, believing the descending pull encouraged strong downward growth. The harvest of grains and medicinal herbs was timed to the full moon, when the heightened sap flow was thought to concentrate vital energies and healing properties within the leaves and flowers. This was not mere folklore, it was a practical application of observed biological facts. They saw that certain marine animals synchronized their spawning to the spring tides, and that the migratory patterns of birds were linked to the lunar cycle. Even the human body seemed to respond, with the term lunacy itself deriving from the Latin word for moon, luna, reflecting the long-held observation of its potential influence on mood and behavior. By aligning their agriculture and medicine with this celestial rhythm, they were practicing a form of bioharmonic energy management. They were not fighting nature's schedule, but partnering with it, ensuring maximum crop yield and the greatest potency in their remedies. This deep, intuitive connection to natural cycles represents a pinnacle of their technological philosophy. It was a system where energy was not something to be extracted and consumed, but a flowing current to be joined, a force that nurtured life itself. Modern biodynamic farming is only now beginning to validate these ancient principles, rediscovering that the most efficient form of energy management might be synchronization with the cosmos. This holistic view wove the lunar cycle into the fabric of daily existence, making every farmer and healer a participant in the grand celestial machine. Control over the moon's power was control over the people themselves. The chieftain or priest who could seemingly command the tides to grind the grain, or summon the moonlight to illuminate a sacred ceremony, held a form of authority we can scarcely comprehend today. This was not the power of a warlord with a bigger army, but the power of an intermediary who could deliver tangible, life-sustaining results on a cosmic schedule. When the community saw the water wheel begin to turn precisely as predicted, or witnessed their ritual grounds bathed in amplified silver light, it was a direct validation of the ruling class's unique connection to the divine. Their right to lead was not just inherited, it was continuously proven and reinforced by the turning of the celestial gears. This technological monopoly created a stable, if rigid, social hierarchy. The authority of the technologist priests was absolute because their knowledge was essential. No one else could read the sky calendar with the precision required to maximize the tidal harvest or time the metals smelting to the full moon. This dependence justified their elevated status and centralized decision-making, binding the community to a single, celestial source of order. Yet this same dependence also forged a powerful social cohesion. The very act of building a lunar power station was a monumental communal project. Hauling a 20-ton stone to align with the moon's southern standstill was not the work of a few, but of an entire community united by a shared vision. This collective labor, repeated across generations, created a profound shared identity. Everyone had a stake in the system's success. The farmer who benefited from the ground grain, the artisan who worked by the gathered moonlight, and the laborer who helped maintain the tidal walls were all participants in a grand, collaborative endeavor. Their shared dependence on the lunar technology and on the skilled class that operated it was the social glue that held the community together. The system's relentless, predictable success did more than just grind wheat. It continuously reinforced the entire social structure, making the power of the chieftain and the priesthood feel as natural and inevitable as the moon rising in the evening sky. Skepticism provides the necessary friction that keeps historical inquiry honest. The idea of a Bronze Age power grid faces substantial and valid criticism from mainstream archaeologists and historians. The most frequent challenge is the lack of a smoking gun, a single undeniable artifact that proves mechanical power generation on a significant scale. No one has ever excavated a Bronze Age generator with wires and dials, and the physical evidence we do have remains open to multiple interpretations. Those precise astronomical alignments at Stonehenge or Mnajdra could theoretically be coincidental, a result of selective memory where we highlight the alignments that work and ignore the many that do not. The mythological interpretations are even more vulnerable to charges of subjectivity. One researcher might see the story of Poseidon as an encoded tidal principle, while another sees only a simple nature myth. Without a written manual from the technologists themselves, we are often reading between the lines of stones and stories, and our own modern desires can easily color that reading. The romantic temptation is another serious pitfall. It is tempting to envision these ancient people as eco-sages living in perfect harmony with a magical earth, a vision that can overlook the harsh realities of their short, demanding lives. A rigorous approach must strip away this nostalgia and look coldly at the facts. When we do, the power outputs from their proposed systems seem almost trivial by our standards. A single tidal trap might power one water wheel for a few hours, and gathered moonlight, while atmospherically profound, could never compete with the practical blaze of a simple oil lamp. So why take the theory seriously at all? The answer lies not in a single piece of evidence, but in the overwhelming weight of cumulative clues. It is the convergence of multiple, independent lines of inquiry. The astronomical alignments are too precise and too repeated across continents to be easily dismissed as chance. The mythological themes of lunar power over tides and growth are too universal to be mere fantasy. The demonstrated engineering skill in moving multi-ton stones proves they were capable of grand projects. When you combine the archaeological evidence of the structures, the astronomical evidence of their function, and the mythological evidence of their purpose, a pattern emerges that is far harder to explain away than to engage with. A healthy skepticism does not mean dismissing the idea outright, but rather demanding that this cumulative case be strong enough to compensate for the absence of that single, perfect artifact. It forces us to ask better questions. Perhaps we are looking for the wrong kind of proof, searching for a modern generator when the real technology was an integrated system that left behind a different kind of fingerprint. The principles of Bronze Age technology are being reborn in our modern world. We are now building tidal lagoons, vast coastal reservoirs that capture the sea at high tide and release it through turbines to generate electricity, a direct and massive expansion of the ancient tidal trap. This is not a new idea, but the refinement of a 3,000-year-old concept, proving that the moon's gravitational pull remains one of the most reliable power sources on Earth. Our ambitions extend beyond the planet, with space agencies like NASA planning to use the moon's own soil, the regolith, to construct habitats and extract vital resources for future lunar colonies. This mirrors the ancient belief in utilizing lunar materials, transforming their spiritual principle into a practical necessity for survival in space. Even our understanding of human biology is catching up to their observations. Chronobiology, the science of natural physiological rhythms, now provides evidence that lunar cycles can influence sleep patterns, hormonal changes, and even the timing of childbirth, lending scientific credence to the old connection between the moon and human vitality. The Bronze Age vision of a civilization synchronized with the cosmos is evolving from myth into a blueprint for a sustainable future. They were the original pioneers of renewable energy, not with solar panels and wind farms, but with stone, water, and an unwavering belief in the power of the sky. Their legacy challenges us to look up once more, to see the moon not as a distant rock, but as a partner in powering our world. Their entire technological philosophy presents a stark and humbling contrast to our own. We live in an age of extraction, of forcing the world to conform to our demands, often with devastating consequences. The Bronze Age technologists operated from a principle of integration. They did not seek to conquer nature, but to collaborate with it. Their power did not come from breaking the world apart, but from understanding its existing rhythms so deeply that they could gently tap into the current. This is the profound lesson buried within the silent stones. Their greatest invention was not a specific machine, but a mindset, a way of seeing the universe as a connected, intelligent whole where humanity had a specific participatory role. In our current climate crisis, faced with the bitter fruits of resource depletion and environmental imbalance, this ancient systems-based thinking is not a historical curiosity, it is an urgent necessity. We are brilliant at creating complex technologies, but we have forgotten how to weave them into the web of life without tearing it. The old masters teach us about resilience through synchronization. Their communities thrived for centuries not by overpowering their environment, but by listening to it, by aligning their needs with the tides, the seasons, and the lunar light. This is the definition of true sustainability, a system that endures because it is a harmonious part of a larger, self-renewing cycle. The goal for us is not to literally rebuild tidal traps, but to rediscover that core philosophy. Can we design our modern power grids to be as responsive to natural cycles as theirs were? Can we create cities that work with local ecosystems rather than simply paving over them? This is the potential of low-impact, high-knowledge technology. It asks for intelligence and humility instead of brute force and consumption. The real lost knowledge is not the blueprint for a specific device, but the art of observation, the patience to learn nature's language, and the reverence to see the forces that sustain us not as commodities to be exploited, but as partners in a grand cosmic dance. Recovering that world, you might be the most important technological advancement we could ever make. This journey into the deep past uncovers a civilization that saw the cosmos as a partner. We have walked the shores of their tidal traps and stood within their resonating stone chambers, witnessing a technology built not on extraction, but on integration. They harnessed the ocean's pulse, amplified the moon's silvery light, and likely tapped into the subtle energies of the Earth itself, all guided by an unshakable faith in the moon's predictable rhythm. This was not magic, but a sophisticated, empirical science born from generations of patient observation. Its eventual disappearance is a stark reminder that progress is not a straight line, that entire libraries of knowledge can vanish when the chain of custody is broken. As we now stand at the brink of our own energy revolution, grappling with the consequences of our power-hungry world, the wisdom of these ancient engineers offers a profound inspiration. They challenge us to look up at the moon with new eyes, not as a distant rock or a future colony, but as a timeless collaborator. Their legacy suggests that the most sustainable path forward may not be to conquer nature, but to relearn its language and synchronize our ambitions with its eternal cycles. What do you think? Could these ancient principles inform our modern search for clean energy? Share your reflections in the comments. If this exploration of forgotten knowledge resonated with you, subscribe for more journeys into the mysteries of our